Hi, it's Dr. Ginny Trierweiler here, coming in to talk about how eating in a way that actually produces the results that we want to get healthier and to get sustainable weight loss is completely different from dieting. I talk about it all the time, but I thought today I would really try to give a high-level perspective on how it's actually different, right? Because we're going for getting slender for good, getting weight loss that sticks, that lasts, that isn't temporary, and then we get really hungry and then we get the weight back. We don't want that anymore. And we don't want weight loss that involves compromising our health either, right? So most diets do not lead to healthy, sustainable weight loss. UCLA researchers looked at this. I talk about it all the time. But when they looked at studies that look at results 2 years down the road, they found almost none, less than 1% produced reliable results down the road, like lasting weight loss. So Slender for Good clients, like I just was meeting with one this morning, they just constantly express relief and gratitude to have found this. Oh, this makes sense. I'm not hungry. I enjoy eating this way. It's beautiful. It's based in abundance, right? So I'm calling this the Slender Way eating approach. And I discovered it through searching the research for what actually works if I want healthy weight loss, if I want sustainable weight loss, what actually works? What are the fundamentals of an eating approach? Because I couldn't find an answer. I couldn't find an eating approach, a diet, a kind of leader guru to guide me. I just finally ended up going to the research myself, using my training and my background in evidence-based practices. And I found 4 fundamental principles that when you put them together, they add up to these predictable, reliable results. And so those are the key elements of the approach. And the research actually guided me toward really specific quantities, like how much fruits and vegetables should I eat, how much proteins and fats should I eat, et cetera, right, for getting these predictable results. And I have to tell you, once it gets super clear, it's not hard to find at all. Part of what we're encouraged to do in this environment is look for what's the latest tip today, and I'll throw it, if I like it, I'll throw it on top of all my other tips. And that is not anything that works in any kind of evidence-based practice in any field. Like, let's just look for all the latest tips and throw the ones together that we like is not a great approach. But it's really encouraged in this environment. So I found what works, and then I feel I've been getting clearer and clearer about why eating this way works hundreds of times better. And I teach the whole eating plan to my Slender for Good clients in the first 7 weeks of our program. I don't even try to teach it to people in this kind of forum at all. I found when I was just trying to hand the answers to people, like the first year after I found them, oh, look, this works, it didn't benefit anyone. And when you study how stages of change work, you realize that most people are not ready for change. They may be asking, but really what they're asking for is the latest tip. So I don't teach it to people until I know, yeah, they're at a stage of readiness to make some changes where they can start to go, wow, this works. And it's not hard, right? So I'm committed to not being the person who's throwing one more tip on top of your pile, if I can help it. So let me share with you sort of a high-level perspective of the major shifts in our approach to eating that make this really big change in our results. So the first one of the 7, the first reason this is completely different, or way this is completely different, is we're putting a top priority on nourishing our body. So I think all the wise women, I only work with mostly wise women in their 50s and 60s, sometimes 40s, sometimes 70s, some men, but it's especially women like me, because I felt like I can't find the answers and I'm a smart person and what I'm doing isn't working and it matters for my life. And so once I found the answers, I really wanted to help other women like me. So we already care about eating healthy. We've been putting quite a bit of time and energy and even money into eating healthy, buying the organic foods, going to the health food stores where everything is marked up 25%, right? Going through the health food aisles. We've always cared about eating healthy, but we made eating pleasure a top priority. I know for me, I really wanted my food to be special and interesting and tasty. Well, that's natural, right? That's just human nature. We want it to be pleasing. Another aspect of human nature is one of our top priorities is convenience. It has to be pleasing. It has to get me out of the pain and discomfort of being hungry, and it has to be as fast and convenient as possible. These are just the priorities of our primitive brain. It's like where we get driven to, unless we're quite intentional about being driven elsewhere. So it's easy for us to convince ourselves that what's the most tasty and what's the fastest is healthy enough. And the food environment that we live in now, the food industry is also really trying to feed us like, this is healthy enough. This is pretty healthy. So they put all these labels on the side of packaged food, highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances, telling you this is healthy. This is pretty healthy. So when you decide actually eating what's nourishing for my body is going to be my top priority, I'm going to be really intentional about this and not let myself be convinced that highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances are pretty healthy. It changes everything. So when nutrition becomes sort of a top priority, and you still care about it tasting good, and you still care about it being convenient, it changes everything. So does that make sense? We're putting nourishing our body, truly, thoroughly nourishing our body as a top priority. So that's a big change in the way we're eating. So that's the first one. The second one is we are really shifting from this approach of you just need to eat less to actually, we're going to start with eating more, right? So we're going to start with eating more highly nutritious foods. So there's a lot of research now suggesting that what's happening as far as the human populations in the United States, but this is really happening all over the world, but I know the statistics best from the United States. What we're observing is more than 80% of the population is now overweight or obese. And that has been growing and growing and growing in all kinds of ways, right? And obesity per se is now over 40% in the United States in 2024. And by the end of this decade, by 2030, they expect it to be 1 out of 2 Americans meeting the criteria for obesity. I had met the criteria for obesity by the time I got freaked out enough to go study the research myself. But this whole idea that even our doctors are trained in, our nutritionists are trained in, and the vast majority of diets, weight loss approaches, are somehow built on this idea of calories in and calories out, that we have to eat less or exercise more or both to force our bodies to release excess weight. And the thing is that will tend to give us temporary weight loss. But as the UCLA researchers found, less than 1% of the time does that lead to sustainable weight loss, right? So one thing I have to say I looked at is not the people who just have always lived slender, how do they eat? That no longer was interesting to me. What was interesting to me is those of us who have gotten overweight and maybe even obese, how do we now release that excess weight, reset our weight, right? And one of the first answers was you have to eat more highly nutritious foods. And so it's really interesting to look at the research about why do we think this is? Why does this actually work, eating more? Because it seems really counterintuitive, right? But what I understand from what researchers are observing is we look like a population of animals that is living in a low nutrition environment. So we tend to be insulin resistant. So our bodies are holding on, are storing fat as excess, thinking we're going to need it because it doesn't look like we're eating enough, right? So we try to lose weight by eating less. Our body already is storing excess fat because it believes we're not getting enough food, enough nutrition. Now we're eating less, like we're just going to drive our metabolism even slower and slower. We're also going to cause our body to change our hunger hormones. So we're going to get hungrier and hungrier. So it's just a really doomed approach. I talk about this a lot elsewhere. Let me know if you'd like to see more of that. It's just a doomed approach. It's not what's going to lead to great results. So we really start with eating more highly nutritious foods. That is the first of the 4 fundamental principles. It's important to get clear what actually are highly nutritious foods, and it's important to get clear what is abundant. Eat abundant, highly nutritious foods. What does that mean? Because for a lot of us, that means 4 timesing or 10 timesing some categories of foods so that our body's really getting what it needs. And I have to say, I mean, I just met with one of my clients who's 10 weeks in today, and it makes a difference really fast. There are other key elements. There are other fundamental principles that really help you get all the way to your dream weight and live there. But that is really the first one. If you take nothing else away from everything I teach, take that away. All right, so that's the second. So the first is we really start prioritizing nutrition over, not in place of, but at the top of the heap, at the top of the priorities for how we eat. Second, we shift away from eating less to eating more highly nutritious foods. All right. Third, we are shifting from eating as much processed, highly palatable, really extra super tasty food-like substances that we think we can get away with to eating real whole foods. Is this a real whole food, or is this something that has packaging? This is something processed, refined, with added sweeteners that tells me on the package, but it's pretty healthy. When you look at how the human animal has eaten throughout history, we have thrived in all kinds of different environments. Humans have spread all over the globe, partly because we're very successful eating a great diversity of foods. This is partly why we feel like I should eat a great diversity of foods. We have a lot of instinct about eating diversity. Now, we've been very tricked in our current food environment. So there's this diversity of Dorito flavors, right? And it feels like to our brain, oh, good, I'm getting diversity. No, that's basically corn and fat and salt with flavorings, with fake flavorings on it. So we have to be so much wiser in the food environment we're in. But one thing you can just really pay attention to is how many of the foods that I'm eating are real, whole, and, unequivocally highly nutritious foods, right? Because we're finding it looks like the human species only does well when we eat real food. We can eat a big diversity of foods, but only if it's real food. Now that we're in this highly processed food environment, we're not thriving anymore, right? We're getting overweight and obese. We're getting high blood pressure, high blood sugar, diabetes, dementia, cancers, pain and inflammation, etc. So that's the third thing that is different about the way we eat. Now, here's another one. We're really going from, oh, what would be really exciting to eat right now? What would be really indulgent? What do I feel like eating? What would be the most special? We're going from that. What do I feel like eating right now? What would scratch this kind of addictive itch that I'm having, to what will give me real health and energy? Right? So if I eat something sweetened, some sugar thing, I'm going to get this boost that feels like energy, but then I'm going to get this crash. So another way of saying this, we're changing the kind of pleasure we're getting from eating, from this really big, fast, exciting pleasure to slow, moderate, calming, energize, calm energy kind of pleasure. big, fast, exciting pleasure is associated with cravings. It's associated with an addictive response. It's associated with feelings of more, I want more. It's associated with, we get this stress and obsession associated with our eating, right? That is not the feeling we get when we're eating nourishing, healthy foods, right? So we're going for a different, slower, calmer, more moderate kind of pleasure from eating, as opposed to this big, fast, almost drug addicted kind of pleasure. So number 5 way that Slender Way eating is different is we're going from doing it the hard way to doing it the easy way. Right? So the hard way is I'm going to eat the most convenient, most pleasurable foods. It feels like the easy way. This is what I've been doing. It's fast. It feels like the easiest. Like doing something different is going to take effort. We're used to it. Doing whatever we're used to, continuing our status quo habits feels like the easiest. And our brain really drives us to do things in the easiest way, in the status quo. However you've been doing it, keep doing it that way, because you never died doing it that way, right? But when it comes to living with joy and vitality and confidence about living your most active, most self-directed, right, life, as opposed to like, I'm going to end up living in a nursing home and having to have people carry me to the bathroom, which is, I know that probably sounds a little dramatic, but that's where I really had the wake-up call when I started working in nursing homes and seeing, boy, indulging in the most pleasing food and drink is not leading people to a very full life at the end. It's actually, research suggests it's leading us to the last 10 years of our lives battling one of these chronic health conditions like high blood pressure and heart disease or diabetes or dementia, right? So doing it the easy way, the way we've been doing it, that feels like the easy way, may actually be doing it the hard way. So it's sort of like, I'm going to do what pleases me today. And I know it might it might raise my blood sugar, et cetera, but that's tomorrow me's problem. Today, I just want what's most pleasing. That actually is doing things the hard way, right? So eating too much of the most convenient, the most extra super palatable, pleasurable food-like substances, it gives us this roller coaster of highs and crashes, right? Of desire and obsession and stress instead of a calm, confident energy. I was just talking with one of the women who joined my program about 10 weeks ago, and she was telling me she's been implementing Slender Way eating approach more and more in recent weeks, and it's absolutely changing her life. She's already down 13 pounds. Her doctor says that like her cholesterol has gone from problematic to less problematic to normal. Her GI issues as well. She's been able to go off some of these medications, and her doctor says pretty soon she'll be able to go off more of them. But more than anything, she is just really appreciating how life is getting like easier, clearer, calmer. She's trusting herself more. She feels like her body is trusting her more, right? And so it feels like she's 70 years old. She feels like life is just more full of potential and positive momentum. I'm going to do this next, and I'm going to do that next. Like instead of worrying about health issues and weight issues, and even how to eat, can I eat this way? And then how will I make up for it later? She just got this clarity and calm and confidence and positive momentum. Does that make sense? Like what feels like the easy way at the moment may actually be the hard way. I'm going to eat as indulgently as I can today, but I'll make up for it tomorrow, is like shoving all the problems off on tomorrow me. And you know, okay, well, yeah, I was going to eat really healthy today, but I had a really hard day, and I think I'll feel better tomorrow, right? I think I'll be able to do this better tomorrow. Continuing to put our problems off till tomorrow is really shortchanging ourselves. So number 6 in this list of ways this is different, number 6 way is I just follow this plan faithfully. There are 4 fundamental guidelines. I know the exact specific quantities to eat. It's super clear. I don't spend a lot of time and energy like looking for other answers because these answers come together and produce results. So even though I've kind of grown up in this environment of what's the latest tip today, I really don't have to look at that stuff. It really doesn't benefit me. I'm not throwing one tip on top of a pile of tips. I follow this one plan. Research shows that the average American is making over 200 eating and drinking decisions every day. Oh, let's see, what do I throw on top of this? Now that sounds exhausting. And when I think about how much time and energy I recouped when I changed my eating, when I got super clear how to eat, and I started learning, you don't need to look for what's the latest tip today. That's like the definition of insanity. Like just do what works. It makes sense. You love it. And it's producing these amazing results for your health and your weight. Like, let's just do this meal after meal, day after day. I'm just going to follow this one plan. I can use all my creative energy to do other stuff rather than constantly look for how to eat differently. Does that make sense? Number 7 is we are really shifting from trying to force our body to release excess weight to figuring out how to work with our body. This makes me emotional because I started as I was looking into the research and finding these answers and kind of arguing with them sometimes, like, no, I don't want to eat that much of that. And what about this? What about that? But I always believed, and I read and just going, yeah, but what is the evidence telling you, Ginny? Just try to follow what the evidence is telling you, what guidelines are coming through here. And as I started following them and feeling what a difference it made for my body, like instead of feeling like I'm starving myself and I'm hungry, I was feeling really well nourished and really healthy and energized in a calm way. And my body was starting to trust me. And it felt like the weight was just falling off. Like it was so natural. Now, the way I think of it is our bodies reset to a healthier point. If you look at Americans in the 60s on the beach, it's rare that people are overweight or obese. It's not common. Like now, it's most of us. It was rare just 60 years ago. We are now in this position where we're trying to force our bodies to release excess weight, and that happens temporarily, and then our bodies fight back. Our bodies are really well designed to protect against starvation. So as I start eating this abundance of highly nutritious foods and following these other fundamental principles, and the body is just releasing the weight, like just resetting to where it naturally should be, I started realizing I'm loving my body in a completely different way. It feels really good, and I feel like my body is trusting me. It's really gorgeous to watch this with my clients. We get a natural sense of, oh yeah, it doesn't have to hold on anymore. When we give the body the nutrition it needs, it becomes happy to release the excess weight. There's no reason, there's no benefit to storing excess fat anymore. It only needs to store excess fat when it feels like we're running out of energy. So when you give it the nutrition it needs, it doesn't respond that way anymore. So those are the 7 things, right? I mean, I hope it gives you an idea of how to change your eating, not to diet, not to get temporary weight loss, right? Not to starve or exercise your body into weight loss, because that is best for temporary results, not for changing your life, not for lasting results. To get healthy, sustainable weight loss, we actually do these things that I just said. We focus on nourishing our body rather than trying to eat less. We focus on actually eating more highly nutritious foods instead of I'm going to eat less calories. We focus on how do I actually do this the easy way so I'm not getting these ups and downs, these highs and lows. We focus on how do I eat for a moderate kind of pleasure instead of the kind of excess super pleasure that drives cravings and drives my body to change how it handles hunger and change how it handles fat, right? We are focusing on eating really whole, real whole, nutritious foods instead of looking for the highly palatable food-like substances that are packaged with some kind of argument about why they're healthy, right? We're following one plan faithfully instead of looking for the latest tip to throw on top of our pile of tips. That isn't effective in any endeavor, any kind of endeavor generally, right? And we're changing from trying to force our body to let go of excess weight to working with our body. And it responds really happy, right? So we're shifting our eating in a big way, completely different mindset and attitude and completely different approach to eating, right? A completely different understanding of what's good to eat. It doesn't happen overnight, but pretty fast as my clients start following this approach, I see this flip a switch happen in their body. I start to see it in their face. I start to hear it in how they describe how weight loss is going. It feels easy. It feels natural to be losing weight, right? So if you'd like to get a lot clearer about how to eat differently to get healthy, sustainable weight loss, how to make healthful eating a happy habit, reach out to me. I love teaching other people how this works. It's not hard. It's clear, it's specific, it's effective. People do benefit from not only learning very clearly and specifically how to eat this way, but then figuring out, well, how do I now do this every day in every kind of circumstance so that these eating habits just start rolling along. They don't take so much concentration and attention. And that's one reason I decided I had to create Slender for Good, is because most of the people offering weight loss programs out there are not habit change experts like I am. Like I've spent 35 years helping people change entrenched habits. It doesn't have to be so hard, but it is a process. And having an expert to guide you through, okay, this is getting easier and this is getting easier. Oh, I just did this while I was on vacation in Europe and I feel like I can do it anywhere now, right? That's how you want to feel. So when things that work get habitual, they get quite automatic and effortless. That's how we get it to be for good. Does that make sense? All right. I hope this was helpful. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Which of these 7 makes like clicked for you? Like, oh, that is really different from what I'm doing. I could see how it would make a difference. I'd love to hear back. All right. See ya.